제가 같이 보지 노대비 나 고반냠 영동제와 소말라비 따완롱 렉당제와 고반냠 영동제와 주바테 주당제와 송 말라비 송에 대대 하정자 치모리 고반냠 영동제와 그래서 재미있게 법발로 접라 테메 투기 장타데 말죠 장타데 빈티니 봐 맞다 미버 상제오나 어서 장타요 다 상태들이 차딱지는데요. 약 같이 시당은데요. 약 시당을 장사래지. 대 많이 받으니 인피로 인피 있네요들이 제가 안 쉽게 탐색을 잡아 사바체베비 장사되나. 들이 대회를 되게 팽담을 팽가시에다가 상관했다는 거리. 펜을 던져 속 차지를 펜을 차다시면 hin지 시보 요래 망시게 예당한테 대응을 쳐다시면 가래서는 이제 요리는 어디 욕진지요 이들이 광 철저하요 대체 투기장 다 통통 차야 돼요 말이지 대체 누구 사지 샘도 참아 쳐다보면 속차 참아지 말이지 얘한테 맞다 들어봐 동이 가래 나타 좀제 깨적 싸움을 하죠 인성 송나 들이 따다 무서 등아 이러다 우리 듣고 그러다 앞에 듣고 쳐버려 제가 뭐 하고 그런 말이 어레디 랑게스 바랑징랑지 요리 다 가지 되는지 다 듣고 니고 상히게 싸워린도 듣고 첫 톡을 다질 톡들이 다 집어지들 듣고 상한테는 요리 코 통만 변이 나연 좀 가든 거 톡을 되니 요리 들이지 듣고지 좀 나연 좀 받지 다 힘이 좋고 사지 힘이 쓰는 소리 이비로 때지나 때다단 차롱을 빼야 오리 차롱 되게 잡소를 잡셔거나 잡소를 조지 요리 뒤조지 그 총총을 때베나 나다 특과 체정을 빼 타바치면 도는 소용오리 특과 정말 바지 저성도 특과 침 빼세 잡소라 소용오리 특과 체정을 되니 가시 나 특과 체모인 고 특과 총물이지 사람을 맞아 시박을 특바치 시박을 특바치 보세요 시에도 그래 우리 샘 특바치 보는 거 샘 특바치 보는 거 가르치고는 로로가 등이 시고 그래 등이 시발사 금종 방war사 그 사지 존재 될 로가 것도 사서 그래 되는 사실 등이 대 시네 딱 저쪽 담지 등이 시를 가야 돼 탑이 오면 다 무사고는 저런 차서 탑이 오면 탑면 딱 가르치고 딱 그때 저 돈을 따로 받치고 넣었어. 저 돈을 받치고나 저 가래 내가 내가 저도 내말 듣지. 뒤섬저 산제더니 뭐하지 내가 저리 내가 저 삼제리다. 동이 저상 자war지. 대랑게 하 고니 가딘 노바 노나 가다 핑거더니 내가 저랑 내말 줄게 약요. 이거 싸우는 또 기치버리. 나는 추보거든요 요래 나 추록 메인지 나만 메인지 요래 맨날 그래야지 맨날 그 삼제요 왜 삼제고 나 조금을 제와요 아마는 제와요야 어때 삼제 티취 다 삼제 싸리면 소리 딴데 말하자리 득바라자 그 광가 폭광가 사고요 광 보탑이 찌그찌 사는 득바라들 버거우지 버거우는 제가 벌써 제시도 쩍쩍 싸거든. 그러다가 뭐 제대 누가도 벌써 싸거든. 들고도 없고 들이 도망에 때려 때려 통만에 때 저렇게 하고 살이 누가도 용용도 강이지. 그거 코랑을 복탑이랑 그냥 싸고 요리. 들이 대시 당성은 통세세야 사야가 되면 대답을 들이다가 다들이 시당 가지고 싸웠지. 이게 싸워리면 내가 자 너는 삼지 뒤취해 취시바 가래다 삼지리 들 자세 정도다. 특히 배세 잡도록들로 다상 촉sem부 도마들 랑이 정도 샘기를 지어 공주티 메시비 지어 공주이지 그런 거래. 샘기를 지어 공은 다시도 들어서 차서지 가지고 쓰고 그러야. 마세 타면 소차 쓰고 쓰는 가리 쓰고 놓고도 야, 산 이기고 마세 타면 우리 차 사고 차선 거냐 답지 사고 그래. 얘랑티 저 사고 아들 레그 제가 매일 가능한 거요 말이야. 잡들 야트 타면 뭐 세요데 무슨 랑 가능한 용 봐지 아무리 레그 제가 요리에 차타 가능 레드 차시 차와인 배나. 대 어그레드 강리 용요래. 강리 용래디. 나기 니 뭐든 지만에 왜 코사고 차단 거니 사와들이 차단 것들이 파사나 자자자 철사고 때 꼬라자 레드 꼬라들이 꼬라자를 사요래 다 때문에 다 매사 탑거리 사지 주 많은 돈 샤되잖아 많은 돈 샤스잖아 니지지 삼시지 사거래 샤는 니지지 그사 창도 같은 통제 법을 담배를 요래 샤 니지지 가래상서는 뭐 빠라게送래 다창 샤가디서는 말을 차더니데 말지送래 오만 배면 말을 너는 말을 제 기레들 소리지 다코 들을 성다고서 사요래 삼 니지세나 땅이 레그 대와디 체를 다리 샤서 봐 대탐지 대서 속탄되와 제대 타로 상무 템으로 요래 별로 샤스로 봐 사제미 칭하고 종담나 들이게 주주도 레 꼬라자고 꼬라자야 하면 소설처럼 고자 말래 배ting이 봐 꼬라자야요 말 가르쳐 삼성기 계속 세상 그 세라 다들 저렇게 당한 봐 양꼬라자 양당인데 코라데 대로 딜렘들 찾아 줘봐대 띠긴 제와는 좀 와서 딜렘들 찾아 줘봐 하고는 딜제버도 어떻게 상인지도 자치 보여 봐 진짜 샤사요리 샤사는데 등에 대신에 로탑인데 또 등에 딱 껴하면 레지 양만 나그장 팔사요리 따따는 차사요리 대로 하고 대위던 제왕이 맞지 다 삼재기 얘도 단지를 했지 로고요리 대회를 드렸다 사지가 탑을 드린 거서 대다로送샤사 사지 차빵을 말 사지에서 갈라가리에 대해서 롱지데 레폴드 로봉소 작사래 가리에 사고 멘트 산남자요 말이 배대다로送대다 너를 또 산행지니 니기자로 담택돼서 아빠가 세야 때부터 요래 그래서 레나면 레기 바티 대중들께 샘대식 용어야 싸면서 요래 다들 로아를 줘서 퍼스널 합니다. 잠벌 퍼바 냠니지만 당시에 상로다는 퍼스널 합니다. 쪼다 냠니 때와들이 대하고서 들이다 소모로 상조제 거리 야 이제 달아요. 이제 돈다 집방마도 저기 시당세 직장요 말이 이거 레기 베주디 제거래 벨라 돌로진 말도 싸마서 우리 다체비 약고도 다다쳐 저도 저 와서마데 노저 양대장데 저자마 양배주도 저 저를 내가 된 거서도 대도 될게 좀 뭐가 뒤에 저와 차야요. 대 자마서 선들이 걸다다 로르도 동에 탑제다다 다 나사라오리 대 나타테는 내 양전 걸 미주제가 가르치실 나사를 대 나사 잡고 주고리 싹수제고리 대트 탑들도 너 대치지 못해 해야요 말고 등에 된 용도를 내 마살 칼레 레 개와서는 레베드가 있는 걸 레베게와서는 레베드가 대신에 통지장 타데 다또 너도 찍고도 요 다시미 상인이 지야 대기지 모르지 찾아주면은 별로 다다 첨적은 나 찾아주면은 야마마는 거 파마도 대주를 내고 좋아요 우리처럼 랩대요 그러지 때문에 들어서 자탐실 동에 있다고 그러지 자벌을 믿으라고 쉬어요 대탐실 소소로 보통 총마 나한테 요리 파마 요리 대신 동에 가려도 딱 나기 다 사야 먹는다고 싫어오는 다 개바 요즘 개바 탐이 차도 별로 홀락탐이 좋은 가리 약하게 좋은 가리 요리 뭐 싫어 대탐실 싸면은 대다고 맞잖아 삼삼모동 다 데르 삼모동 탑지 다 내도 고고 탑들 민가리지 데르 고민가리고 조성 치보다 뒤로 다 쇼요 삼모 데이터 얼마 되게 대 마시려 다당 내가 얼마 마실 텐데 다 손자 세치도 강치도 별 자반이 돌아다니지 고 자반이가 차로 그래 배티죠 가라메 봐도 로메 봐도 야 처음에 봐도 너 가리 누누데 대답 사와지 그거 다 삼모래지 다 조고 사지 인핀세면 인핀으로 따르면은 다 내가 대로 제요 그래 내 내그리 예당 하당 땅섭선 누가라도 차요 대를 투지장 타지 와야 그다음서 남관장이 계산적으로 도와주는 방법을 그랬지 도와줄 잘 정책을 도와주는 생기는 상민지 공제 상민이 걸 살펴라는 편지로 와第三기 조사 청청 담당관 나주장을 찾아서 나한테 저거도 나상 세지들 세지 등에 저거 탑가리도 따투도 들게 용주 서로 세지들은 들게 이거서 레게 남만 변 삼재가 같이 참나 그것도 들리면 나디 삽도 그래 사지 체배부 통해서 사지 좀 되게 되게 무슨 가지 있어도 너서로 강그 삼당 기기 쳐들래 상촉생이 장소시부터 쳐들지 되고 상촉생이 너무 랑잖니 뒤뒤를 우리 상촉생 쳐볼게 타봐도 사지가 타를 탑가리리 상촉생 맞지 지어지 맞지 뭐냐 공공 배워야지 그다음에 상촉생이 잡지 너무 치서는 상촉 때는 잡지 너무 왔을 때 내가 책을 이제 가리 나그 사람부터 떠오르고 잠블을 약고 차고서 때 돕지그랬지 습기 탐지하고 차고 때 나그 사람부터 대라 뒤지고 또 뒤섭지 산지 사야만 보게 때리고 싸움을 찍고 직장을 뒤도 없대 다 탑거리 최종은 장소를 내가 차고 그래 뒤지고 또 취지 인지도 없어 이제는 호와 산지니 말업 장소된 차그럼니 말업 니 말업들이 다 다른 차그럼 요리 차고 월수 돈으로 요리지 그것도 좀 내려가면 봐야 요는 차그럼들한테 처럼 어때 죽으셔도 다니지 다 삼지지 세미 반지지 이게 제에 따라서 이게 농민들하고 셈을 요거래 토를 농이 채로 요거래 농이 채로 때 용어들 농이 전부 끼어가는 이게 셈을 끼어다리 되게 바로 볼라 배가 요랑을 잡았다고 요래 세끼는 이게 제보잖아 맨날 치마 너도 띵동아 따바 잡아먹는 누가 다송 사직의 송을 피우송을 라마를 먹을 기마들이나 대리라고 하거든요. 네, 시들을 받아 그거래. 세끼는 이게 이러더니 어떻게들이 다 들어가서 레그도 받아 그거래. 레답다 뉴답 시답다 그거래. 시들을 받아 라마를 먹을 때 시들을 받아 그거래서 레답다 생기는 이게 세배 받지 지금 대리들이 세미는 태블릿 독기장 다 되버 책지를 봐. 다때 독기장 다 돼서 너가 뭐도 소속제다 제동 사족선부 노바에 자기 여바시요래 야 먹는가 추록 직장 매 예수이 같이는 hin지 요래 같이 생기 있어라 주 들리지 주 다세 요래 대다 같이 라만 안하고 대 속하는 하등 이게 저버고 그래 대다 탑도 그래 상무동을 찍고 너랑 생기다 이제 법학을 잡아요라 대통령 대신 생긴 코와를 잘들이 나들이를 또 삼지 그러나 다시 법을 송을 hingi 잡아 담책데 세체 대바 많이 해서 대다고 상무동 대다티 책 대까지 설결 들들이 창조 너는 투기 장타 되 삼히지레 삼히지 너가 뭐도 사실 쳤다 개통 매일티 hingi 장타도 요거래지 출로 요롱 외용 hingi 삼제도 요거 삼제도는 내가 병을 더 빈세연 투보 차거래 남의 투보 차거래 야 hingi면은 남을 조금 그냥 대트고 말이 대트고 말이 나한테 차검을 그래 대접도서 나한테 치에서는 다시 다와는 라마 계시나 될 삼제고 요래 야 홀 습기를 삼제고 그래 들어 속차는 삼제고 들어 속차 삼제고는 잡타만 뭐냐면 대제기를 좋지 들어 가시는 하장 찌와치 뭐래 배들 지야 될 때다 대식님 보고다 대용지 지와래지 다들 대식님 보용지 내가 내가 하는 걸 속작해서 배디와리 저다 주면 남다 보자 자치 탐정하는 사람 요리 그것도 나가로 토밤에 대탐지 용지의 지와 그 용지의 이제는 대식님 보고 될 지와 그 용지 내가 된 거를 남cap서 다 되네 내가 지정돼 삼지 시종을 대도 제요래 될 때 통지장 다 집어대 대래 통지장 다대 될 공과지로지 대랑에 셈을 주는 냠용을 집어 내 샤차에 저러는 바짝이 되네.
So please continue to sustain the visualization while I say a few words, which are actually very important words. So we have said, Milarepa had said that meditation must be imbued with an experience. And then the practice, the essential, the teachings must be connected to like the scriptures, to the lineage. And then the conduct must be performed in a timely manner. These are also very important words. So regarding the experience, the meditation that must be imbued with experience, so it says here on page 4 in the end, may they seize the lifeline of compassion. So now regarding this lifeline, when two people possess love for one another, then they possess this lifeline. But there's different kinds of lines, so to speak, that connects others. There's also the kind of line or bond of attachment and anger. For example, some possess this line, this lifeline or bond of anger. So this is not the kind of bond we are speaking about. We're speaking about the altruistic lifeline. And if you possess altruism, your love will pervade other sentient beings. So there are some people who wonder whether their love will really actually benefit others or not. But because our nature is one and the same, if we cultivate love for others, it will certainly benefit them. For example, regarding the lifeline of compassion, some people, out of great compassion, keep pet animals at home, like cats and dogs and so on. And most people have great compassion for cats and dogs. And why? It's because they look very cute, and also because they give us love. And so that is kind of a short lifeline of compassion. But still, we are connected to them on the basis of Buddha nature. All beings, whether they are cats or dogs or humans, all living beings have really the same life force, which is their Buddha nature. And so even though we all possess the same Buddha nature, why is it now that animals, for example, suffer more than humans? So Jigten Sumgön had said that karma, or karma cause and effect, is the natural manifestation of one's momentary thoughts. I'm myself, for example, I'm a very sinful person. Many of you don't even know. But I'm a very sinful person. I have gained a lot of experience. And from my own experience, I can see that all such negativity, all negative karma or afflictions, it all comes down to self-grasping. Self-grasping that we have habituated to since beginningless time. Whenever this concept of me begins, this is where all negativity begins. So in the 37 practices, it says, the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. If you just give rise to a slight moment of altruism, then your ice block is going to melt and become one with the ocean. So we speak about the difference between the Mahayana or the Hinayana, and we say that I'm a Mahayana practitioner, but he's a Hinayana and so on. But what really makes the difference is our own state of mind. In the Great Liberation Sutra, the Buddha had said the mind state of one of the lesser vehicle is like the water that collects in the footprint of a cow. Whereas the mind state of one of the higher vehicle is like a vast ocean. So it really comes down to that. It doesn't really matter whether one calls themselves a Mahayana practitioner or not. It depends really on one's own inner state of mind. Of course, anyone can speak about the different stages of the path and when one becomes Mahayana practitioner and so on. But really, it's all about one's own state of mind. So we need to, as Mahayana practitioners, we need to understand, be aware of the suffering of sentient beings. In the very beginning, the Buddha had said, first you must recognize suffering, and then you must abandon the origin of suffering. And if you do so, you will actualize the cessation of suffering. So then when we see certain animals, for example, certain beings, it seems that there is no way for them not to suffer. They are bound to experience suffering. So what can we do to help them? We can help them on the basis of causes. And the cause is, as we mentioned, the cause of love, of happiness is love. All the Buddhas have said, the Buddhas of the 3 times have made a single prayer saying, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. And that single cause of happiness is love. And they said, may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And that cause of suffering is self-grasping. Because that is so significant whenever we do our opening prayers, I always really emphasize this word, the cause, which is gyu in Tibetan. So the cause, may they be free from the cause of suffering and so forth. And because it's the cause that we need to understand the cause in order to benefit others. So there are some who say, I'm a Buddhist practitioner, I'm a religious practitioner, and some say I have no need for any religion. And that's okay. But do you have any need for love? Then they will say, of course, I love my parents, I love my friends, my dear ones. So that love is what we call the Dharma, actually. There is one being that doesn't have any love at all. And what is that being? It's a scorpion. A scorpion, some scientists have said that scorpions eat their own children. And so they, for example, give birth to 9 children, 9 scorpion babies, and then they eat 8 of them, and then there's 1 left. And that's actually why there's not so many scorpions around. So also scientists have actually said that. And so there are some who are able to even eat their own children. And whatever they see, they make it their food, they eat it. So that is an example of a sentient being who doesn't have any compassion at all. But in brief, everyone needs love. And love is the Dharma. That is what we call the Dharma. And according to this quote in the Great Liberation Sutra, there are just different levels, different degrees of love. But now for us who have taken the Bodhisattva vow, we have taken a commitment to cultivate love for all sentient beings. And sometimes, even though that is our vow, we have no choice often but to kill an animal, even though if we don't want to. And also sometimes we eat meat. But then there is also a way to do that. We can cut the karmic connection, the negative karmic connection with that animal by cultivating love and compassion for them. So, for example, if you eat some meat, and then that is because you have a karmic connection to that animal. If you wouldn't have a karmic connection, it wouldn't end up in your mouth. There are hundreds and thousands of fish, for example, that are being killed in the oceans, but they don't all come to your mouth. Only those that you have a karmic connection with. So the workings of karma are really very subtle, very intricate. So once they come to your mouth, there's a karmic connection. So then you can use this karmic connection to bring an end to this negative cycle of karma. So in one life, they have eaten you, and now in this life, you are eating them. So for as long as there is this grasping at a concrete reality and the true reality of self and other, this is how karma goes around in circles. So recognize that and think that in the past you have eaten me, now I'm eating you. But there's different ways of eating too. The wheel of karma continues to turn if we eat the animal with attachment or anger. If there's an afflictive emotion, this is what perpetuates samsara. Whereas on the other hand, we can eat the animal and then bring an end to that this negative karmic cycle. For example, we can recite a mani mantra and pray for this negative karmic cycle to be interrupted, and then eat the meat with a mind of love and compassion. There's actually this saying in Tibet that says, those with compassion eat meat, and those with realization drink alcohol. So if you have compassion, recite an Om Mani Padme Hum mantra whenever you eat meat, and eat that meat with compassion. And the essence of the Mani mantra, the essence of compassion, is genresic. So in this way, eating meat in this way, you are actually able to plant the seed of liberation within their mind streams and bring an end to this negative karmic connection. And then you can also say any other mantra, the name of any Buddha. And that also can interrupt this cycle of negative karma. And then it won't come back in the future. Of course, on the other hand, if you eat an animal with anger or with desire, then karma will come around again and they will eat you back in the future. So this is all due to the interdependence of phenomena. So if you understand that, you will understand the preciousness, the importance of cultivating love and compassion. So also when you're eating meat, therefore, be aware of the suffering of that animal and recognize that this you eating the meat happens due to a past karmic connection. And think that now that I'm eating you, I made this karmic connection come to an end. Love brings the negative karmic connection of self-grasping to an end. It is a skillful means. As a matter of fact, Buddha himself did not tell his monks to not eat meat. He did not abandon eating meat, actually. He actually said that you have to use your begging bowl to ask for food, and whatever food lands in that bowl, you have to eat it without any preferences. You can't say, I'm eating this, but I'm not eating that. Whatever ends up in your bowl, you have to eat it. And even if that's meat. But then when you end up eating meat, eat it with great compassion. And so that is also related to the practice of Vajrakilaya, where we perform liberation offerings, or we deliver forcefully sentient beings. But that actually happens also with a mind of great compassion. And the principle is the same. We are severing the negative cycle. We are purifying negative karma, and we are purifying their Buddha nature. So in the practice of Vajrakilaya, especially in the consecration of the kila, the consecration of the kila actually is really the root of the practice, the heart essence of the practice. And this is where we bring an end to negative karmic cycles such as these, and we purify the Buddha nature by liberating sentient beings. In when we practice the Jangchok, for example, that is a method to liberate those who are alive and also those who have deceased. But the essence, the principle is the same. Sentient beings are liberated with compassion, and they are not murdered with hatred and so forth. But through compassion, an end is brought to a negative karmic cycle. It is also just like washing old dirty clothing in a washing machine. Also, science actually nowadays is very skilled in even reusing the water. When first we wash something in water, so the water becomes dirty, and then scientists are able to recycle that water and purify it so it becomes usable again, and then it becomes clean water again. And this is actually also something we are trying to do here. In whatever negativity arises, Buddha nature remains unaffected by it. And sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara are liberated, like being liberated from a disease. For example, if you have a very severe illness, like cancer, for example, you require a more invasive treatment, like a surgery, for instance. And so this is what we do to sentient beings to benefit them. And even if sentient beings suffer, their Buddha nature can never die. It can never be killed or cease to be. But temporarily, beings are bound to experience suffering due to their own karmas. And that is why we say and we learn that do not commit any wrong. If you engage in non-virtuous action, the result will be suffering. If you engage in virtuous actions, the result will be happiness. So there is no happiness or suffering that doesn't arise from its cause. So all happiness arises from the cause of love and compassion. For example, cats and dogs end up as pet animals in families, and that is also because they have a karmic connection in the past. That is why they're able to live in that family when other animals suffer outside in the cold. Or, for example, in this world, there are no people who suffer more than others. It is all because of karma. But so the suffering of others has to come to our mind when we think about the suffering of someone losing a loved one, like a child or a husband or a wife or their parents. How much do they suffer? And so nowadays, for example, we have had the pandemic, and so many people millions of people have lost their loved ones, and then many people have died of starvation and so forth. So there are so many terrible things that are happening in the world, or people are being killed in schools and so on. And there are some people who do think about what can be done to help these people. And then they come up with various methods to, for example, prevent disease. For example, people have come out with a vaccine, or people have made donation and they sponsored different causes and so forth. And that is all because they want to help prevent negative things from happening. And then there's other people who remained unaffected, maybe by the disease, and then they go out and they use weapons to kill others. And they try to find ways to make them be without food or deprive them of electricity or water and so forth. So there's one kind of person who tries to help others, another kind of person who tries to destroy others. It is because they have different intentions. So again, in the 37 practices, it says, the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. It all really comes down to that. And then the opposite of that would be great hatred. And there are some people who are even worse than animals because their hatred, their negativity is so deep-rooted. And so all of this is connected to this lifeline. There's different kinds of lifelines. There's the positive one and the negative one. And so for us who have taken the Bodhisattva vow, as many of you have taken the Bodhisattva vow, we have taken the commitment to benefit others. I must cultivate love and compassion for sentient beings. And that will benefit others, and also it will benefit yourself. For example, this is also how I think, just in a smaller sense, when it's cold outside and I wonder how much others are suffering, the animals, for example, in the cold. So this is how we should think when we have taken the Bodhisattva vow. We bring to mind the suffering of all beings, of humans, of animals, and so forth. And then also understand, once we feel their suffering, understand that it is all due to karma. So the more love we are able to cultivate for sentient beings, and that is a sincere love, which is an actual feeling coming from within, the stronger that is, the more you're able to benefit others, the more you're able to actually lighten the self-grasping in others. And that is the nature of the Buddha's immeasurable compassion. In the fivefold path of Mahamudra's supplication prayer, in the very beginning, it says, I supplicate to bodhicitta, which is like a precious treasure in the ocean of love and compassion, ocean like love and compassion. So bodhicitta is like a vast ocean, and we connect to this ocean, this treasure of compassion, when we take, for example, the Bodhisattva vow and promise to cultivate love and compassion for all sentient beings. This was a skillful method given to us by the Buddha. So the method is to give rise to bodhicitta where it has not yet arisen, to not let it decline where it has arisen, and to ever further increase it. And actually also when we take the refuge vow, we take the refuge vow also on the basis of bodhicitta, a bodhisattva vow. And then the refuge vow itself actually becomes much more powerful. And the power is generated by three powers. First, there is the power of your own intention, your own wish for everyone, for all beings to be happy and well. And if you have this wish, then you connect to the second power, which is the great compassion of all the Buddhas of the three times. They have one single intention. Even though there are millions of them, they have a single thought, and that is to bring happiness to sentient beings. So if you cultivate bodhicitta, then you connect to the power of all the Buddhas' bodhicitta. And then having connected to that, you connect to the third power, which is the power of the Dharma Dhatu. And here on this level, we then realize that our bodhicitta is all pervasive because there is no separation between self and others, between Buddhas and sentient beings. Ice and water do not exist separately, actually. Yes, there is ice. It is like a rock on the relative level. That is why we say on the relative level, karma is unfailing, because the mind is like an ice and performs the function of a rock. However, this ice can also melt if it encounters the warmth of love and compassion, immeasurable compassion. And so for that, when immeasurable compassion truly arises in you, what arises in you is the tremendous suffering of all sentient beings. It comes to your mind. So it seems that your suffering actually may be increasing. So this great suffering comes to you. And when great suffering comes to you, you feel their suffering. That is actually a sign that you have cultivated immeasurable compassion. And that compassion will actually benefit other sentient beings and yourself, because you are purifying your own obscurations. For example, if you cry a single tear with compassion for sentient beings, the Buddha had said, you are purifying the negative karma accumulated in thousands of aeons. And what is even more powerful than that is a single tear cried out of great devotion to the Guru, because this purifies the obscuration to omniscience, the most subtle obscuration. A tear of compassion purifies the obscuration of karma, but great devotion to the Guru purifies the obscuration to realizing the nature of the mind. There are different levels of obscurations. There's the obscurations of karma, of afflictive emotions, and the subtle obscurations to knowing one's true nature. And that one is purified if we cultivate devotion to the Guru. So now coming back to the lifeline, may they seize the lifeline of compassion. So you should really look within yourself and try to see, do I have this lifeline of compassion or not? Really analyze your own mind. Now we have taken the Bodhisattva vow, and therefore we must establish this lifeline of compassion. And so again, this goes beyond a certain religion. For example, there are many Christian practitioners or Islamic practitioners who possess great compassion. For example, in Islam, they have many modes of discipline that are rooted in compassion. Actually, when I was in prison, I shared my time with some Islamic teachers, and I really found that there was a particular one who had really immense compassion. So also in the Vajrakilaya practice, again, when we liberate or annihilate sentient beings, it is really a liberation from samsara, a liberation performed through compassion. In the Vajrakilaya Tantras, it also says that to slay with compassion and not with anger or hatred, that is the samaya of Vajrakilaya. So we stop the teachings here, but I want you to reflect on this lifeline, whether or not you have this lifeline of love and compassion. And if you think you don't have it, then you must gain it. You must gain this lifeline. So whether you are a religious practitioner or not, you need to cultivate love. For example, even temporarily, even if you're not a religious practitioner, in a family, for example, or between friends, when there is love, then they will be harmonious and get along with each other. Whereas if there's no compassion, if there's no love, then they will part ways. They will not be able to spend their lives together because of self-grasping, which is like ice. And we need to melt it with a mind of love. So any being, whether they are religious or not, or human or not human, we need to cultivate love. For example, also animals need love. There are certain animals who have great love, like birds, for example, and they can stay together. They can coexist. Hundreds and thousands of them can live together and help one another. And so that actually is also a sign of Buddha nature. The quality of Buddha nature is the capacity to give rise to love. And that leads to even just the most temporary happiness. As an animal, for example, like a pet animal, like a cat or a dog, or like a bird who can fly unobstructedly through space. So all of that is a quality of love. And it arises from the same basis that we all have, that is Buddha nature. Only temporarily we experience different levels of love depending on our ability to cultivate compassion. So that is the meaning of this lifeline of compassion here. I really ask you to reflect on that and to see whether or not you possess this lifeline. So now I've shared with you, my Dharma friends, what I do know, what comes from my own experience in terms of this lifeline of compassion, Tashitelek.
From the mantra garland like rays in a second garland issued forth, passing from my mouth into the mouth of the consort. The self-resounding mantra proclaimed by the inconceivable dakas and dakinis in the consort's four chakras arouses the mind stream. From the consort's secret place the mantra garland enters my Vajra, and the deities residing within my channels proclaim the sound of the mantra. I visualize the mantra garland dissolving ceaselessly under my arm.
Om benza kele kela yanza om bamo kadam gayen zayen benza ye anze de aparanze de marazena damardana sarva bene ba om benza kele kadam gayen zayen benza ye anze de aparanze de marazena damardana sarva bene ba om Zayem ben Zayem de Aparanza de Marasena Damardana Sarva bene ba hom ba wom benza gele gelayanza hom ba ho gadam benza ye anza de aparanza de marasena damardana ye sarva bene ba hom be om a le 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 a ka 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 ta 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 nya ta 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 na ta 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 ba 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 ma yara lawa shaka sahaja oma a o o a ga 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 na da 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 na da 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 na ba 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 ma yara lawa shaka sahaja oma a o le le o na ga 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 na da 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 nya da 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 na ba 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 ma yara lawa shaka sahaja so om benza sato sama mana pala di don me baba so de ga yo me ba so ba ja yo me baba anura do me baba sawa se de me ta ye so sawa karma so sam chedan she yam guru ho ha wo pangava sawa ta ta ga dam benza ma Beda Bava Ma Samaya Sato Om Beda Sato Samaya Manopala Beda Sato Tinoba Tijande Do Me Bava Sudekayo Me Bava Subuchaya Me Bava Anarato Me Bava Sarvaside Me Dayeta Savakarma Sudam Chidang Sharyam Guru Hong Ha 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 Ho Bangave Sarvata Tangata Beda Mame Beda Bava Ma Samaya Sato Om Beda Sato Samaya Manopala Beda Sato Dinoba Tijande Do Me Bava Sudekayo Me Bava Subhajaya Me Bava Nurato Me Bava Sarvaside Me Dayeta Savakarma Sudam Chidakaya Guru Hong Ha Wo Bangave Sarvata Tangata Beda Mame Beda Bava Ma Samaya Sato Ome Yedar Maheda Baba Hede Tukin Tatangata Hayova De Tukin Zayon Ewan Bodha Ma Shamana Yesova Ome Yedar Maheda Baba Hede Tukin Shamana Yesova Ome Yedar Maheda Baba Wahede Tukin Tatangata Hayova De Tukin Zayon Ewan Bodha Ma Shamana Yesova Voin Parje Perpela Zoye Zena Sawen Je Bamba Gazon Toyon Teledo Ba Menga Nyam Jaja Toye Jaga 36. Lama Tenzin la tan kan ru tam je tan je nam ka la nguen je to da wang trên yin de dem ne jing gu ne da nam yo ba nam xin chen be chen to ze wa chen bu gong ba jo.
Ja.